for going 1.5 miles, 3 bends on the grass course at Gulfstream Park. It's a first level allowance with a $35,000 claiming option. Let's take a peek at this field. 9 entered in here. Mike, the number 4, Bravo Kitten, your 5-2 morning line favorite. We haven't seen this one since September when she just missed at Kentucky Downs. I thought she had a pretty good trip that day.
Yeah, I did too. She did run an okay race. I couldn't quite get the job done off of a really good trip. I agree with you there. I guess I'm, not that surprised to see her as the morning line favorite, Dan. Obviously, it feels like there's no real standout in here. And her form fits for sure with these horses. We'll see if she gets the 1.5 miles.
I agree with you. This is a competitive race. Let's try to get more clues with the Timeform US Pace Projector. It's hard to imagine they'll be blazing going 1.5 miles, but I do expect Blue Time stretching out off a mile race to be up and on the lead after breaking from the rail. Those tactics worked relatively well for this mare when she stretched out at Saratoga over the summer, finishing 3rd in a first level allowance on Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with her being on the early lead in this race. That's her running style. She has, she's run pretty well against some decent horses in New York in the past. She did break her maiden at Aqueduct in December of 2021, going 9 furlongs. When they stretched her out for 2 starts in September, I don't know, Dan. I thought she ran okay in one of them. I really didn't care for her performance in the other.
Let's talk a little bit more about Blue Times, the number 1. Again, last time actually turned back to a mile at Gulfstream. Sort of got hung wide. I don't think her speed was played to her best advantage going a mile that day. She's going to get to the lead. That's probably the strongest edge that she does have over this field. But would you agree that she probably has to run a lifetime best? She is trained by an excellent horseman in Danny Gargan.
I do kind of think that she'll need a lifetime best. It's not like she's that far off of, she's 10-1 on the morning line, Dan. It's not like she's that far off of, some of the shorter prices in this race. Again, I just thought she was kind of a tough read because I just didn't want to take her only because she is going to be on the lead in this race. Although I do think that makes her dangerous. That race 2 starts back when they went 11 furlongs with her. I just didn't think she ran that well that day. And I didn't think she was compromised by pace in that race. I don't know what her excuse was. I thought she was bad.
I can understand anyone that's getting a little tired of the act of the number 2, Elle Forte. She is 1 for 11 lifetime, 4 second-place finishes. She was second 2 starts back at Aqueduct in a race where she tried to get into it with a 4-wide bid on the 3rd turn, and she flattened out a little bit late to finish second. Last time out at Keeneland, I thought the trip was okay for her, sort of saving ground in mid-pack. Hole opened up in between horses. For a second, it looked like she was going to burst on through, and then she just found that company a little too steep.
Yeah, I guess she did. I'm not. I found it hard to really get behind this horse, and I just can't really decide how good I think she is. We've seen her several times now. I'm seeing no improvement out of her at all from race to race. You mentioned the race at Aqueduct 2 starts back. That's the same race that Blue Times was in. Blue Times cutting the pace and just totally stopped through the stretch. I thought overall this horse got a really good trip in there. I thought she did her absolute best with it. And it just wasn't good enough. I feel like if she runs a race similar to that one, I'd rather bet someone else.
Maybe a little bit of class relief as the runner-up from the last race at Keeneland did come back to win a first-level allowance with an 89 buyer, then placed in the off-turf synthetic Tropical Park Oaks with an 81. Influencing the 3 is interesting from a pedigree perspective, isn't she? She's by the great Tappet out of Marketing Mix, who was a Grade 1 stakes winner on turf going 1.25 miles, a Grade 3 winner going 1.5 miles, and this is really influencing's first chance to stretch out to a longer distance, and she goes out for a fantastic trainer in Tom Proctor.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what she'll do here. So far, and it's still relatively early for her, Dan. Only 5 starts on the grass. We'll see what she turns out to be. So far, not really much from her. We'll see if she can find a way to improve. As you've already pointed out, her dam was really, really good. The thing is, Dan, it's not like Marketing Mix was only good going long. She was good at a mile. She was good at 1.5 miles. She was just a good horse overall. Influencing has something to find at this point.
She does, because also she hasn't run in about 6 months. So the layoff at this elongated distance could cause an issue. And it's questionable as to what she was facing before the layoff. At Tampa Bay last time out when beaten as the favorite, the runner-up came back, got beat at Colonial in a $10,000 3-life claimer with a 62 buyer speed figure. Bravo Kitten is up next. We're going to watch her most recent race at Kentucky Downs, where she was able to save ground all the way. The rail opens up, turning into the very long straight. She slips on through. She has all the momentum, and she's just going to fall a little bit shy in a game effort. It was a good performance for Bravo Kitten, but then she was listed as a vet scratch at Keeneland on October the 27th and is now coming into this race off about a 3-month layoff.
Yeah, and she runs fine here. The trip was a really, really good one, and she's just second best in here. She has some other races, though, that would also give her a chance, Dan. I don't think she'll be compromised by the way the race is run. We'll see how she handles a 1.5 miles. I don't know that it's going to turn out to be her best distance, but she just won 1 mile and 5/16, and she ran fine in there. I just didn't really want to bet her as the favorite here because overall I don't think she's that good. I also, we've already talked about this a bunch of times. That's a Kentucky Downs race, the most recent one, so it's hard to put too much stock into it. And I just hate the horse that beat her. Shad Nation, the horse that beat her that day, I'm not a fan.
Like Influencing, the number 5 In a Spin is returning off a layoff and trying a longer distance for the first time. Let's watch In a Spin's most recent start before the layoff. This in the summer at Penn National in a non-winners of one restricted race for Penn breds. Finishing second in here, a good enough performance. The third place finisher came back, ran second in a little restricted stakes with a 73 buyer, then would win 3 of the next 4 starts on dirt. Some distance questions, although it's worth noting in your free formulator past performances, when you click on the sire name, hard spun 23% winners, 10 furlongs and above.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm still a little concerned about this horse stretching out to the 1.5 miles, but we'll see what happens. She ran fine last time. You saw in the replay there, though. Overall, I thought anyway, the trip was a good one, and you saw the winner come from behind her and pretty easily outfinish her that day. I don't know. She did win 3 races in a row on turf earlier last year, so maybe that's a good sign for her.
You and I are both big Jimmy Toner fans, and he'll send out the 6 Broadway Boogie. And this horse really appreciated a little extra distance first start for Toner, stretching out to 1.25 miles at Colonial Downs, utilizing good tactical speed, and then just blowing that field away late. Now, I'm curious as to your thoughts about her trip and effort last time out. First time against winners. They shipped her to New York in a first level allowance. Now, it looked like she was kind of bottled in behind horses for most of the way, but when she was clear, I wanted to see something, and I didn't. So I'm not sure how good that race was.
I'm going to agree with that. I thought maybe when she came clear in the stretch, maybe she would have a little bit of kick, and she absolutely did not. I guess the flip side, I thought about it for a long time, Dan, because it was such a slow pace in that race. And for a filly who had run really well when she broke her maiden, they put her right up close to the pace that day. And you can go back and watch the replay of that race at Colonial. She fired a good one and just sort of ran that field right over through the stretch. I don't know why Junior Alvarado didn't go forward with her last time. The pace was super slow. He buried her behind horses for about 1 mile. And that, listen, I don't know when the right time to go in that race was, but whatever that time was, Junior didn't find it. He just sort of sat on the rail behind horses all the way into the upper stretch, and then she just finally spit the bit on him. I don't know. I think it was a bad ride last time, and I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt.
And of course, you can watch the trip by clicking on the short comment link in your free formulator past performances. Social Engagement is up next. This horse was 6th for Brendan Walsh last time out at Kentucky Downs. But if you're like Mike and I, and you kind of take these Kentucky Downs races with a grain of salt, you draw a line through that race, and you're left with victories in her 2 prior starts over more conventional turf courses at Ellis Park. Of course, those came against weaker competition at shorter distances, and I'm not sure about the longer distance for this one.
I'm not either. Although, listen, she's by Cupid and out of a lengthier mare. So, at least on paper, she's got the pedigree to stretch out a little bit. It did feel like she beat a couple of weak fields, though, at Ellis Park over the summer.
Although at the Kentucky Downs race was only an even performance, she did finish ahead of a couple of next out winners on dirt with buyers of 78 and 73. Lucky Peridot is up next. She's going to try to transfer this good synthetic form to the turf. This is a recent off-turf race competed over the Tapeta, tested over the Tapeta at Gulfstream Park. A $35,000 beaten claimer. No problems for Lucky Peridot as the favorite. The 4th horse came back, ran 3rd in a Florida-bred $20,000 optional with a 76 buyer. I'm not sure if this horse is best surface is turf.
I'm not sure about that either. She has 2 for 22 in her career on grass, but it kind of feels like, to me anyway, she's probably equally proficient on all 3 surfaces. She's won on dirt, she's won on synthetic, she's won on turf. And she's just one of those horses I think you can count on to show up, Dan, and just run a representative race. It feels like surface doesn't really matter. It kind of feels like distance doesn't really matter. They went a mile and a half with her once in the past. It was in a grade 3 at Santa Anita. And she finished 4th, beating less than 3 lengths. So I don't know. I just think she makes sense. I can't say that I love her, but I wouldn't totally throw her out.
Mike made a very good point about that Astra back in January of 2021. You can obviously have lifetime past performances in your free formulator PPs. You can click on him. You'll get to see that running line. She did run well the one and only time she had a chance to go long. Running Legacy completes this field. She's only raced once previously on turf. She's very lightly raced. Her most recent efforts on dirt and synthetic leave a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, she's just, to me anyway, just a wild card in here for a really good trainer with IRAD taking the mount. She's only run on turf once. That was off of a layoff and off of a maiden win in her career debut. So, I didn't want to put too much stock into that performance. I have no idea how good she is. She has an awful lot to prove in here. But again, I just feel like she's a real wild card.
Well, really well-bred daughter of Gunrunner, stretching out for the first time to these longer distances. Before we get to our top picks, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for all the latest DRF videos. Top pick time. I thought this was a pretty wide open race. I'm not a big fan of the record of the 2 LA Fort, but I think she can work out a decent trip. And I think if she runs her usual race, she'll be relatively close. You disagree. You're going to give Broadway Boogie one more chance. I think she has way more upside than my top pick.
Yeah, I like that she has upside. And ultimately, Dan, even though this race is kind of wide open, I don't think I'd be surprised by too many outcomes. It was an easy call for me to want to bet Broadway Boogie because I really liked her maiden win first time for Toner, and I hated the ride she got last time.
I do think, like you, that the number 4 Bravo Kitten is a contender in here, but at a short price, I'm not sure she has such an edge that I want to take that short price. Broadway Boogie for Mike, Elle Faute for me. It is our DRF race of the day, Thursday, January 5th, race 7 at Gulfstream, 3:14 Eastern, the approximate post. Best of luck.